Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with some analysis for the Avatar The Last Airbender North and South Part 1 preview pages. They've come out basically just 20-30 minutes ago. Dark Horse linked basically a comic book resources news site, so they got the exclusive this time on the preview. 7 pages, standard size preview. And so just quickly before we get into the pages, book is going to be released September 14th in comic book stores and September 27th from regular bookstores, and Amazon will ship it to have it out for that date. Quick look at the cover, obviously you can see here, but we've seen that before. Let's get into the preview pages because it's really good. Is the first thing I'll say, but we start off with just Sokka and Katara, which was expected because they specifically left, on their own, basically, because Aang had to go and leave them to deal with the incident in Smoke and Shadow, leaving Sokka and Katara to return home alone. So they've just arrived back, and straight away, they're just shocked, as you can see here on page 1, by the fact that there is a dock at the Southern Water Tribe. That's new. The amount of people that are there is different as well, because there's kind of normal middle-aged people around, which really wasn't the case back in ATLA when they left, and it's just really interesting that they don't recognize their own hometown. Like, that's how long it's been, and you just get some jokes. Sokka's reading a map, trying to figure out basically what's going on all over the place here. And then they notice some kids penguin sliding, and you get straight away the nostalgia hit as we go into page 2 of the nice flashback panel to obviously a younger Katara and Aang penguin sledding. Katara, the art on Katara in the corner of this kind of flashback panel doesn't look very good. Her face, like her eyes, are like 2 dots. So I wonder will they fix that before release, because it does look a little bit silly if you go a bit close in on the image. Just something I just noticed there reading it, but remind you of the day we met Aang, and the middle panel on this page just is so nice. You could see how meaningful that day is, the day they met Aang, and how much it's changed her life especially, but Sokka's as well, just in general the world. That was a really important day when they met Aang, and it's just really great nostalgia, like referencing stuff from the very first episode of the series. And you get the joke of obviously Sokka accusing Katara of being the one who thought he was a spy, whereas it was the opposite way around. But now Sokka and Aang are like best friends, basically brothers, and then they just say, "Look, do you want to do this for old time's sake?" And so that's page 2. Page 3 is loading. Okay, so yeah, then we seem to have a bit of a. It's a weird transition, I think, is probably the best way to do it, in that it's definitely a skip of pages, and that these aren't just 7 pages in a row. 2 to 3, I don't think there's any way that this is just exactly how the book starts. And clearly something happens. There's at least 2 or 3 pages probably in between this. But obviously Katara has noticed some men basically going to attack or at least mess with these kids who are building snowmen around this kind of house that's being built. And she steps in, uses her water bending, tells them to get back, fires snowballs at them. Obviously she's not trying to be overly aggressive. Then Sokka just gets up with the kids and is just like, watch what's just about to happen. Katara's going to be awesome. And even though they're water benders and block the snow themselves, Sokka's just completely confident he knows what's going to happen here. And even though the two of them form a giant snowball, you could just get a really nice action moment of obviously Katara stopping it, huge thing, stopping it, turning it into a spike ball, and basically threatening to just smash all 3 of them with it. Now, the notable thing here is that one of the guys obviously is wearing a green kind of jacket. Now, does that suggest that he's actually from a different nation, or are they just trying to make it so that the clothing isn't all blue in the Water Tribe? I'm not fully sure. He doesn't seem to be a bender, because it's only the 2 of them, the 2 people in blue that do the water bending. So maybe he's an earthbender and can't actually bend because of the snowy environment, which may be set up for Toph being in a weird situation here. But we move on to the 6th page of the preview, with obviously the kid being very, very impressed with this, and they just mentioned that we were only going to scare those kids is all, we weren't actually going to hurt him. And she just says, if you want to keep people away from here, how about putting up a fence? So it's this idea that basically they were working on this kind of building that's being built. The kids got in there and were kind of messing around, and instead of just saying, like, look, we're busy here, please kind of go play somewhere else, they got a bit aggressive with them, and Katara's just like, why didn't you just put a fence up? But she doesn't know to the kids, why are you actually playing here? And Sokka and Katara offer to walk them home. Where do you live? And the kid points, that way, and they're like, oh, you're from the village, who are your parents? And then the kid's like, village? What village? You mean the city? So really nice little kind of dialogue thing building up to this idea that, okay, they're back in the Water Tribe, but what does their village, their home village where they live, what does that actually look like? And we cut to the last page of the preview here, as they walk into basically the location of where their city, where their village was, and it is a Northern Water Tribe kind of esque city. It's not as big, but it is still a big city compared to where we left. Proper buildings, not just huts and igloos and stuff like that. Rivers kind of behind the kind of ice walls, very reminiscent of Northern Water Tribe structures. Little ponds in the middle, and lots of people around the place. As I said, it's not just kids and elderly people and the sick. It is, a thriving city, and it's a complete kind of alien environment basically for Sokka and Katara, which is a really big thing. And I really appreciate this preview starting out like this, with the characters just kind of, with just our two characters. It's kind of like starting Avatar all over again, because obviously the show starts with just Katara and Sokka, and then they find Aang, and now this return to the south is Katara and Sokka, and then Aang is going to come in at a later stage, because obviously he's on the cover for all the books and stuff like that. I assume he's going to come in with Toph, in that, like, he's going to wrap up everything in Smoke and Shadow. He's going to say, okay, now I've got to go back to the Southern Water Tribe with Katara and Sokka, and somehow along the way he gets Toph on board and he brings her with him. Or he comes and then Toph going is like a separate thing, in that I assume Sokka and Katara have like informed all of their friends that they're returning home, and Toph is just like, hey, I'm a key part of Team Avatar, I want to see where the journey started too. So I'll go to the Southern Water Tribe too, but we don't really know how that's exactly going to happen. But it's just really very impressive preview. Like all of the previews, doesn't really give away a lot, in that of course we're not straight into the whole Melina stuff, meeting Hakoda again, and delving into like what is the plot going on here. But in terms of just hitting home of like a core of why you should read this book, absolutely nails it. And just the excitement of, this is perfect, what I wanted Sokka and Katara's kind of return to be like, comparing it to the way it was, happy to be home, and the kind of excitement but also kind of oddness about how different everything is. And it's going to be interesting to see if they're happy with everything being overly different. I suppose the one conflict we get here is obviously with the men messing with the kids, and are they trying to suggest something like there's a little bit too much building going on or something like that they're not letting the Southern Water Tribe be the kind of naturalistic people that they kind of are. They like to hunt in the wild. It doesn't have to be a super built up city. Is that going to be part of the conflict, and the kids kind of are more familiar with the place being kind of not as kind of built up like this, or what? That's going to be the key thing. But really, really cool stuff here with the art, because for Gurihoru, this is their first time having to really heavily go for a lot of Water Tribe kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to see how they approach doing a lot of basic buildings made of ice, a lot of water, and then getting the comparison right with the colouring between snow, ice, water, and how blue, the shades of blue, and then obviously also trying to make the characters also wearing blue and white stand out as well. So I think that's working really nicely overall. So very, very impressed, definitely, with this. And seeing Sokka interact with the young kids again. I don't think it's implied that these are kind of newer kids, so we assume what they've potentially done here is that they've brought a lot of young families from the north to come and live in the south to kind of have them grow up there, I suppose, is potentially the idea. In that these kids, there's no way they'd be this old but only born very recently, so they have to be kind of like origins in the north kids, I suppose, is the idea here. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how much happens before Aang arrives. I think that's one of the key things now in the comic. When exactly does Aang arrive? Is it going to be that he only arrives towards the end of this book, and we're going to have mostly a Sokka and Katara focused book just for part 1, which I'd actually be okay with. I'd actually be okay with Aang only arriving towards the end, because I think he's going to have nostalgia about coming here too, but I think you can cover his reactions more so in part 2 and have just a Sokka and Katara focused book from the beginning here, while still giving Sokka and Katara focus for the entire series. So yeah, they're just my initial thoughts on this preview, basically minutes after seeing it go online. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this book. How excited are you for it now that we've actually seen it in motion and stuff like that, or actual pages from the book? And do you have any further speculations now based on the description we have in addition to these pages? So yeah, we'll cover this more on the podcast, not this weekend because we're doing a Voltron spoiler cast, this week's podcast, but next week. Oh no, as well, because San Diego Comic-Con's next week, so we'll probably do some sort of a show where we do cover news plus San Diego Comic-Con. It'll be like a news-focused show that week, so we will cover this on the Avatar podcast, Avatar Online podcast, next Sunday, not this Sunday, next Sunday. So yeah, just gonna end the video there by saying you can find links to my Patreon page, PayPal donation link, Twitter and Tumblr in the description below. But other than that, it's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.